Democrats have said the events of the Capitol on January 6th were an assault on our democracy. And if that's true, if disorderly conduct in a restricted building is an assault on democracy, then what do we call setting fire to a federal court in Portland, Oregon, where people inside, what do we call that? For a year, we watched riots in our American cities, and House Democrats have remained silent or actually supported the violence. The federal courthouse in Portland was under attack every night, and Democrats said nothing. And I'd like it. Please play video number 1. Madam Chair, I'd like my time stopped while we're waiting for the video to be queued up and played. Madam Chair, as we're watching this rioting, this insurrection, this violation of the rule of law, this attempt to change our government system taking place in Portland, I wonder why Democrats have refused to hold hearings regarding those riots. We should all condemn every form of political violence, in fact, all violence. And as we watch this, I have unmistakably condemned violence in Portland, like we're seeing here, as well as violence in the Capitol on January 6th. I encourage my colleagues to do the same. I think you can stop the tape now. Thank you. Stop the video now. Thank you. Now, Representative Lynch implied that Representative Heiss didn't know what he's talking about when he said the ellipse, walking the ellipse to the Capitol takes about 45 minutes. Representative Lynch said, it's just 2 blocks, a couple of minutes. Just all he has to do, Mr. Lynch, take a look at your mapping app. You'll see it's 45 minutes when there's no crowd, much less when there is a huge crowd. I want to go to Mr. Miller and just clarify a few points, as well as Mr. Rosen, so please stand by. Mr. Miller, I believe you testified that you had all the authority you needed without talking to President Trump on January 6th. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And Mr. Rosen, you also said you didn't need to talk to President Trump on January 6th because you also had all the authority that you needed to act. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Miller, you talked about an organized conspiracy. That's the quotes I have from you earlier in testimony about what took place on January 6th in some respects. Was it organized, the attack?
I don't know. I think we're going to have to find out through forums like this and further investigation, but it appears that way based on the communications protocols and whatnot.
Okay. Thank you. Now, it's got to be hell to have Donald Trump living in your head like my colleagues across the aisle have. Everything they do is based on what Donald Trump said or didn't say. But the reality is he did talk about moving peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol. One last clarification for you, Mr. Miller. The Democrats keep talking about breaching the Capitol in their timeline, but there's a big difference between breaching the outer barriers of the Capitol that surround the Capitol versus actually getting into the Capitol building, is there not?
That's exactly what I was trying to explain, yes.
And so some of their timeline is screwed up because they don't delineate and distinguish between those two important facts.
I think there's a misunderstanding about when you talk about the security perimeter versus entering the Capitol.
Yeah, you're too diplomatic. I say they screwed up their timeline. So in my last little bit of time, Madam Chair, I want to submit to the record 4 different pieces of media that have come in detailing the treatment of protester Christopher Worrell, as well as Paul and Marilyn Huper from Alaska. One is a Politico article dated January 6th, defendants win unlikely dim champions as they face harsh detainment. Capitol riot, another Politico article, Capitol riot suspects held in D.C. are in restrictive housing, district says. Another one is FBI tortures Proud Boy member kept in isolation for 23 hours a day while awaiting trial for bashing a window out at U.S. Capitol, faces 20-year prison term. And what did January 6 patriots and Guantanamo inmates share? Another periodical. With that, Madam Chair, I'll yield back. Without objection. The gentleman from Vermont, Mr. Welsh, you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To my colleagues, Mr. Biggs, I condemn the violence in Portland. We are here today to discuss the failure of the authorities to protect the Capitol. Mr. Rosen, you testified that the Department of Justice normally focuses on gathering intelligence about threats of violence and sharing that information with police and federal partner agencies. Prior to January 6th, were you personally aware of the calls for violence that were all over social media?
At some level. I mean, I had been paying close attention to the fact that the January 6 rallies had been announced in the media and were coming, and asking that our organization do everything we should be doing to prepare appropriately and to coordinate and to share information. So I wasn't the intelligence analyst, but I was certainly briefed on the activities.
Let me follow up on that. You said at some level, it is your job to anticipate things bad that can happen and be prepared, right?
Of course, and we were doing that.
And President Trump had been calling for this rally for really since the election itself. Is that not correct?
I'm not sure if I know the answer to that. I was just generally aware that this rally was going to happen. There had been previous ones in November and December.
This question about what President was doing, it was all in plain sight. I mean, this is not a big intelligence coup to read the newspaper or hear what the President is tweeting and saying. He wanted people to come to the Capitol. You're aware of that.
Yeah, Congressman, there had been previous rallies in November and December. Yes, I was aware of these rallies.
Right. And you understood that the line of the rally was that the folks who were coming had real objections to the outcome of the election and were of the view that the election had been stolen, right?
I think in a general way, I was aware that they were coming because they were dissatisfied with that. So,
you know, I got to stop you. If you're in intelligence, you're like skeptical. You're worried. You're concerned. It is your job to be concerned about what's the worst case situation that can happen. Or is that not how you define it? Whatever's in the news is just what's in the news, and it's just another story. I'm serious. That's a serious question, okay?
So let me, Congressman, let me address that. I was concerned that the appropriate preparations were underway.
Okay, did you direct?
Obviously, the Capitol Police are responsible for the Capitol.
Let me ask you this.
I don't have people guarding the Capitol, but we're trying to make sure that people are coordinating and sharing information appropriately.
Did you direct Director Wray to investigate further? Did you consult with Chief Conte or Chief Sund? Just answer those three questions. Direct Wray, consult with Conte, consult with Sund.
I had conferred repeatedly, including the day of, but certainly in the week prior, with the FBI, including the leadership. With regard to others, we had, as I've said in my written testimony, mechanisms in place for regular coordination, including people that were embedded together at the MPD, JOCC, and at the WFO, the FBI field office. And then we eventually set up the national coordination at the FBI headquarters, SIOC.
Here's why it's hard to understand what you're talking about. You didn't do anything. I mean, the day after this event, we put up the fence.
How can you say that when we sent over 500 agents and officers on an urgent basis on January 6th to provide assistance at the Capitol.
Here's why
these ATF agents, these FBI agents, the U.S. Marshals,
here's why
I think they need to be applauded, Congressman.
Well, I certainly applaud the frontline Capitol Police and all the folks who came here. I definitely do that. We're all in agreement. But you know what? January 5th would have been a better day to send them. Putting the fence
the Capitol
that you
Police
put up,
did not request that.
This is this was not an intelligence failure. The news was out there. It was as plain as day. It was a cavalier decision that was made, in my view, on the basis of the fact that it just was inconceivable that a Trump rally could result in an attack on the Capitol. So it wasn't taken with the seriousness that would have been applied had it been any other instigator than President Trump. Thank you, and I yield back.
I differ with that, but I think you're misunderstanding who's responsible for security at the Capitol, which is
tình nồng thắm xuyên qua bao mái tranh, ngọt ngào dâng hương hương mái tóc xanh. Những tình mặn mà là những tình đơn sơ, quê tôi vẫn đẹp đẹp những tình ngây thơ. Chiều làng quê say sưa trong tiếng ca, người làng quê yêu bông lúa thiết tha. Những mẹ già ngồi trồng tre đùa xóm dưới, rung rung môi cười như thua còn đôi mươi. Anh ơi khoan hò khoan, trên sông con đò ngang. Khoan ơi khoan hò, em về chăm lo việc nhà thóc lúa vun vườn cà liếp dưa. Anh ơi khoan hò khoan, lúa chín tô mồ hôi. Khoan ơi khoan hò, tới mùa đơm bông, khơi ngàn lối sông gặt nhanh ta gánh về. Chiều tàn rơi trên đê nghe tiếng ai, hẹn hò nhau vui duyên thăm gái trai. Tiếng hò chơi vơi khi trăng ngả lá lơi, đêm khuya rộn ràng bao tiếng chảy buông lơi. Hàng dừa cao in mơ soi bóng sông, mộng ngày mai say sưa những ước mong. Gái miền sông hương hẹn trai miền Cửu Long, hai ta ước thề xây thắm tình xuyên quê. Khoan ơi khoan hò, em về chăm lo việc nhà thóc lúa vun vườn cà liếp dưa. Anh ơi khoan hò khoan, lúa chín tô mồ hôi. Khoan ơi khoan hò, tới mùa đơm bông, khơi ngàn lối sông gặt nhanh ta gánh về. Chiều tàn rơi trên đê nghe tiếng ai, hẹn hò nhau vui duyên thăm gái trai. Tiếng hò chơi vơi khi trăng ngả lá lơi, đêm khuya rộn ràng bao tiếng chảy buông lơi. Hàng dừa cao in mơ soi bóng sông, mộng ngày mai say sưa những ước mong. Gái miền sông hương hẹn trai miền Cửu Long, hai ta ước thề xây thắm tình xuyên quê. Gái miền sông hương hẹn trai miền Cửu Long, hai ta ước thề xây thắm tình xuyên quê.